And I wasn't sure, like, I figured we'd bullshit a little bit, more in the beginning, but you can
but we didn't. Yeah. So it was just normal bullshit.
What we call that, recording an episode.
That's right. Yeah. Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. For one last time, we're delving into the depths of our expanded minds to talk about the impact of psychedelia on popular culture.
Yes. We may have been at the bar a bit too long getting our minds expanded.
And that's okay. We have a lot to talk about today as we discuss what happened with psychedelia after the Summer of Love and Woodstock.
Spoiler alert. Nothing like going mainstream to kill a counterculture style.
So grab a couple of these flaming unicorns.
Huh? I didn't know there was a cocktail called a flaming unicorn.
There's not. I meant literally grab these flaming unicorns.
As we come back down to earth, right here in the bar.
All right. This is our third and last episode on psychedelia, and we're going to talk about sort of its lasting impacts on pop culture. Where we left it in our last episode was the tweaking, the peaking of psychedelia. Over the course of our little series here, we learned that LSD played a big role in inventing the counterculture style. And
who knew?
Who knew? I know, really. Write that down, kids. You heard it here first. So LSD, we'll catch everybody up, but that's no excuse. Get out there and listen to those previous episodes, too.
No, I thought you were going to say it's no excuse not to do LSD.
I don't think you're hearing that exactly right. Kids, don't do drugs. But LSD was invented in the 30s, and it had a growing mainstream use into the 50s and 60s, along with mushrooms. Right?
And Todd, I just love this. Can you pronounce the drug in mushrooms for us, please?
I can. Psilocybin.
What?
Psilocybin. But it's also pronounced psilocybin.
Psilocybin?
Psilocybin.
It's like you're talking about some random Asian country or something. I'm not sure.
Psilocybin, yeah.
That's where you go when you take mushrooms.
That's a great Asian dish. I like it extra hot.
I'll bet you do with extra mushrooms.
Yeah, with extra mushrooms anyway. Psilocybin or psilocybin, one or the other.
Something like that, yeah.
But really, okay, psychedelia hit full steam as kind of this representation of the counterculture movement, particularly in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury scene in the mid-60s, 65, 67, known as the Summer of Love.
Yeah, I think this would be the Summer of Love for LSD specifically.
Yeah, I could see that. We talked about the big five of psychedelic poster art. Wes Wilson, who invented the groovy melting type. Victor Moscaso, Stanley Mouse, Alton Kelly, Rick Griffin. You've heard of all these names before. We wouldn't be who we are without their influence, and they were having a big old time mixing their influences, such as Art Nouveau, Surrealism, Op Art, Eastern mysticism, Eastern mysticism.
Your favorite. That was probably the name of the country you mentioned earlier, where they grow all the mushrooms.
Yeah. Of course, it was fused with drug-inspired visual distortions. And I think, there's it's a style, right? But it certainly had an impact. Like psychedelic design revolutionized typography. This illegible letter forms became part of the art, right?
Oh, yeah. Very sort of experimental and out there. Emphasis on things like fluid type or vibrating colors. unfamiliar symbols that push graphic design beyond function and into, more of an emotional plane, I would guess, kind of pulling it away from commercial art and into fine art, right? As it got to be more experimental and more experiential.
Good way to say that. Thank you. We can't really get into psychedelia without talking about its influence on music and the media. That's probably where most people were exposed to that particular counterculture style.
Oh, yeah.
Through album covers
and the
posters.
record store. That was really when it kind of started to become mainstream, right?
Yeah. We talked about Sgt. Pepper. That's probably a well-known one. Pink Floyd's early album covers, designed by Storm Thorgerson's Hypnosis. They carried, obviously, these psychedelic sensibilities. But then there's, some other big ones you might have heard of. Axis, Bold as Love, Disraeli Gears, The Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, King Crimson's In the Court of Crimson King, Cheap Thrills by Big Brother and the Holding Company, which was actually created by R. Crumb, one of our favorites as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Here's a little funny takeaway, Elliot. CBS Records, in that time period, they launched this thing they called a WOW campaign with psychedelic posters that they inserted into mainstream albums.
Okay.
So imagine like your aunt or, some suburban teenager getting this mini acid trip visual with their Paul Anka records back in the day.
So they this is great. So it's almost like like a blow-in card in a magazine.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were just putting in whatever was rolling off the line over at the record plant.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
I love this. But we can't forget, in addition to records, we can't forget about things like fashion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tie-dye, paisley, these bright synthetic fabrics that were coming onto the scene. Stuff that was really, mass-produced and then sold in chains like Sears or JCPenney by the early 70s.
Yeah. And, the commercialization and the mainstreaming of this style was really kind of what kicked the legs out from under it. I think if you start seeing psychedelic clothes in Sears, you might think something's
if
gone,
you're busting
right?
out the catalog and you're flipping through and all of a sudden they have the psychedelic section.
Yeah.
Apparel. That would be amazing.
Cool.
Man, we should look that up. We should go try to find an old Sears catalog and put it on the episode page.
Yeah. Hey, go buy your Paul Anka records and then go to Sears. And
hey, it was all in the same place, man. You're probably buying your record in Sears back then.
But some other well-known brands were dipping their toes in the counterculture vibe, like Campbell's Soup. They ran this trippy, swirling ads in 1968.
I could see that, though, with the Warhol connection and, when he did his multicolored Campbell's Soup cans. That was a little bit trippy.
Yeah, that could have worked if anyone knew who Warhol was then, which, obviously he was a popular figure, but maybe not for Paul Anka fans.
Yeah, there weren't Warhol clothes in Sears.
And everybody's familiar with the Volkswagen Think Small ads. That was, obviously that wasn't looking psychedelic. It was very minimal, but the vibe of it was very counterculture. And Pepsi ran these day-glow, swirly, kaleidoscopic campaigns, and Levi's and even McDonald's experimented with some trippy ads in the 1970s featuring rainbow-colored hamburgers in this dreamlike sequence to appeal to the youth market. So,
I would love that.
Hold on, Grimace.
Yeah, exactly. That's where all the McDonald Land characters just look like normal people waiting for the bus.
Yeah, right. So that was kind of sending a signal, to the counterculture that it might not be as cool as it once was. And also, psychedelia started transforming, too. It became things that we may know, like prog graphics, like Roger Dean, album cover designer Roger Dean. You're probably familiar with his work for the band Yes. Also Asia and Uriah Heep. You're super proggy, right?
Yeah.
So not like swirly, melty stuff, but it kind of in your mind.
It was more. It was sort of like polished surrealism, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would like harder edges, more like chrome and glass and things that were reflective and. bird wings and bugs and
It was easier to visually understand, but not any
it
more
was sort
logically
of straying into
understanding.
fantasy a little bit more
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we can say Psychedelia is getting commercialized by Madison Avenue, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I can imagine that would have a negative impact on the original counterculture participants.
Yeah. Same, true. Like so many of our episodes about cultural movements like the Beats or the pop art movement or Tiki, you know, there's a real art to this stuff.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. They sort of emerge, then they flame up, they get exploited by moving into the mainstream, as we talked about. They get co-opted, so then they become uncool in the eyes of popular culture, right?
Yeah, that's a nice reminder for listeners to check out our vast library of episodes, too.
Oh. Well, when I said flame up, I was thinking of a fun round of dangerous, trippy drinks, not our past episodes.
I was thinking the same thing when you used the word exploited.
Huh?
Yeah, oh boy. We'll be back to wrap up our Psychedelia adventure in just a minute. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters,
Think Ghostbusters.
iconic images,
Think Bigfoot.
punk music,
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons,
The Pink Panther.
and failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
Okay, Todd, thanks for the round of flaming drinks. You know, I think you look good with one eyebrow. I don't care what
Oh,
the
my
rest of the
God.
bar patrons think, okay?
I'm never going to live that down again.
Okay, so let's get back into this real quick.
Okay.
So, yeah, the way we had left things was stuff wasn't maybe in the best place, right? Because it was in Sears. So it was definitely not in the best place. And then, yeah, album art was sort of starting to change and morph and get different. And
Yeah.
really, Psychedelia was distancing itself from its initial sort of lab-driven or cow patty-driven drug culture origins and kind of getting, like it was, I mean, I'll be honest, like a lot of movements, it started to compound on itself and become sort of a parody of itself, right? It's an imitation of an imitation
Right.
of something else,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
original participants are long gone by this point.
True. Now, the style that we identify as psychedelia never really went away. It became less cool, of course, over time. Like you said, the original participants just kind of went like, "Pfft, whatever.
Right.
But, you know, the style, it continues to pop up over time. I think we can say, you know, I'm trying to think back. I was a little tyke in the 70s and you were even a littler tyke. So
Yeah.
I think that there was probably some of that trippiness left over, but it definitely was not to the degree like in the 60s.
Have you ever seen Sid and Marty Krofft? I mean, there was some stuff still circulating in the water in the 70s for sure.
Right. So, you know, the style has a look, right? But here's the thing. The whole vibe of that had a big revival in the 1990s and 2000s with digital and the sort of visual arts.
Yeah, this echoes our Tiki episodes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If you think about that, this was also around the same time there was this Tiki revival.
Yep.
Okay, so how do you square this? Were the Tikis tripping? Like, how is this? What were the Tikis? What were people eating when they were looking at the Tikis? What was going on here, right?
Well, poo-poo platter, maybe, but not the kind that you would expect. Well, yeah, I mean, remember, like, the 90s were a time of eclectic style mashups and lots of stuff was happening. It was kind of like whatever your tribe was, right?
Yeah, I'll agree to that. And I think we can thank our old friend Baby Internet, right?
Oh,
Baby Internet keeps
baby.
popping up. Yeah, he was such a little rascal when he was young.
Yeah, a little ne'er-do-well.
And that really kicked off things like cyberpunk, right?
Oh,
that were
yeah,
sort of coming online right then during that period.
Right. And psychedelia's lasting impact, we can see the inspiration start to appear in design movements of the time, like punk zines, grunge typography we've talked about on some of our grunge episodes.
Yep.
Rave flyers.
Oh,
Whoa,
yeah, man.
Whoa,
Oh, yes.
You think? No drugs in there. And of course, like digital glitchiness, these aesthetics with digital glitches. And I want to mention real quick, if you don't mind, you're super familiar with Steve Heller and Seymour Quast's book, Graphic Style, from Victorian to Digital. Yeah.
Yep.
Folks, if you haven't gotten this, it was published in 2011. Great book of just style movements. And it really does show you that there's this linear thread that goes through them. And around that time, obviously, 90s rave culture, electronic dance music, they were sort of adopting the same psychedelic visual tropes, I would say.
Oh, yeah, light shows, all that sort of stuff, right? And then we had the Manchester and shoegaze scenes of the late 80s, early 90s in the UK with bands like Ride and Happy Mondays leaning into psychedelia and the baggy look, if you remember that.
Yeah. Interesting, because, designers, they used computer-generated graphics then in Photoshop to simulate the psychedelic distortions that maybe they got in the 60s with drugs, but they got them this time with digital tools.
Kai's power tools, man. How many chrome spheres do you remember seeing floating over water with a mountain range in the background, right? So we had just sort of swapped the LSD for Photoshop filters. That was our drug. We were on digital drugs at that point.
You're right. Thank you, Kai. Kai was our digital drug dealer of the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was our spirit animal, our spirit developer, our Photoshop plugin developer, I guess.
You mentioned some bands from the UK, too, that sort of picked up on that vibe. Psychedelia reemerged with MTV graphics when they were still showing M and music videos. Like, one of our favorites, the Chemical Brothers, right?
Yep.
Bjork, Jesus Jones. You remember Jesus Jones, don't you? And Delight. That was nothing but trippy, right?
Yeah.
Because you think about it, it was like, at the time, they, as musicians, could do things with technology that had not been possible before. Same with design. Could do things that had not been possible. Now, should we have been doing that, Mr. Kai? I don't know. But we did.
You know what? It got us to where we are now.
Yes.
I mean, technology was shrinking and getting more portable, and it was also getting more powerful.
Yeah.
So that just allowed the freedom to have a lot more experimentation, whether visually, sonically, whatever.
Yeah.
And think about the visuals in punk zines you mentioned, sort of this messy DIY typography. The 90s grunge type, of course, we talked about in one of our past episodes on Gen X, magazines like Ray Gun and David Carson. You mentioned these glitchy digital graphics, and those have carried over to today, right? It's almost like things get too polished and too perfect, and you need to add a gritty edge to them, right? You need to have this hand-done sort of look and feel and touch, and sometimes it just feels more human to make things less perfect, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I love when work that I'm creating feels like a human created it, and there could be mistakes, intentional mistakes, not always.
Right.
I remember, how many times have we put in textures on stuff to give it a little bit of a warm feeling, or I put in smudges. I Photoshop smudges on posters and stuff because I wanted that imperfect feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It was a little kind of upside down, wasn't it? We were using modern digital tools to create imperfections.
Yeah, you were making the type crunchy. You were making the registration, the lineup of colors just a little bit off. Maybe the crop is just slightly crooked, or you're rotating something just a little bit so it feels like it was screen printed or letterpress printed slightly out of register or whatever.
Right. And the reason why is everything else could be done perfectly.
Right.
When you're using the Mac to design it. So if people are zigging, you got to zag. So that style, that kind of looseness, that grittiness really appealed to me.
This is kind of, I'll be honest with you. Sorry, I'm going to rail like an old fart yelling at clouds for a minute. But like, this is to me the problem with tools like Canva. They're so template driven and so perfect. They don't allow for, I think, the same level of play and experimentation and serendipity. Now, having said that, it's meant for a different consumer.
Right.
So
it's auto-tuned for design.
Yeah, so I don't want to sound like this old guy's bagging on Canva. I find it
has
useful.
a purpose.
Yeah. But I think when you really want to kind of pop the hood and play and have deeper control over things, you probably need to investigate other tools and walk away from it.
Right.
Now, having also said that, who knows what AI can do if you have the right prompt in there. It can perhaps pull some things that, if nothing else, you can start to build on.
Yeah, of course.
So I think it's like everything else. The tools change. As we talked about, the aesthetics go through different cultural moments or cycles or whatever. But yeah, I think the humanity, that warmth, it's the same reason people gravitate toward vinyl records.
Right.
Can you get a crisp, perfect recording? Absolutely. But, audiophiles say, yeah, that's wonderful, but it just simply doesn't have the warmth.
Yeah.
And by warmth, I think they mean that sort of scratchy, crackly imperfection that comes from a needle dragging across a disc of urethane,
Or even the tactile experience of taking it out of this 12 by 12 canvas and looking at it, holding it, cleaning the record. Like, you don't get that with
having your weird psychedelic insert slide out of it when you're listening to your Paul Anka.
Put that in my Paul Anka record. That belongs in my Wayne Newton record.
Wait a second.
So that brings us kind of to today and the resonance of psychedelia and how we are seeing things influenced by that and how it may be showing up in the mainstream. And you mentioned a moment ago about the fashion like tie-dye and bohemian style and paisley. That was once the hippie uniform, but it does keep cycling back. The 1990s, the grunge revival. You had talked about that. There was sort of that thrift store chic that came along with that. And then the 2020s festival fashion. Flowy dresses and fringe and beads and ethnic prints directly from Haight-Ashbury are staples of music festivals like Coachella, Burning Man, Bonnaroo, right?
Right. Yeah, all these modern music festivals are essentially the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of Woodstock and the acid test, right? It's this tribal, communal, immersive, sensory overload sort of experience, right? Only now everybody's holding up a screen to make sure that their friends know they were there.
Right. And to that I say, if you're at Coachella, invent your own style. Don't co-opt the one from the late 60s. Make your own style. All right, now I sound like I'm barking at clouds, don't I?
Or unicorns, maybe. Unicorns.
Yeah, that's right. Could be either, In an interesting, more commercial swing, and I don't know, I'd like your take on this. psychedelic branding now ties into wellness and mindfulness and technology, like microdosing apps, ketamine therapy clinics, and even meditation apps. They've adopted the sort of psychedelic visual cues.
Yeah, this goes again into this mainstreaming, because this is really what you're articulating. It kind of went from the hippy dippy, NorCal kind of earthy, cosmic hippiedom into the sort of tech bro culture, right? Like, I gotta have my edible, I gotta be microdosing, I'm gonna be peak performance in this window when I'm coding or doing whatever I'm doing. And again, like, to some degree, that's kind of our cultural version of the Sears catalog as we're recording this episode, right? It's kind of like, these are the guys that, in any other era, these people would not be considered cool.
Right. But we've created a place, the internet, where it's this gathering, where people can share all this stuff. I think it's really interesting that Northern California first brought us the Psychedelia style, and through technology, Silicon Valley, now it's sort of reinventing it in a way. And, think about like technology and digital culture with that sort of mind expansion, VR headsets, AR and immersive technology, like those psychedelic ideals of expanding perception. They live on in the in your own local drive to create these virtual worlds.
Or in the cloud, right? Where you're connecting with your tribe. Think about gaming and all that kind of stuff.
How trippy is that?
Yeah. So really, it's this idea of escapism, right? And if you remember, Steve Jobs, in the Walter Isaacson biography, one of the things he said was that, dropping acid was one of the 2 or 3 most important things he ever did.
Whoa.
I know.
Kids don't do drugs.
Yeah, unless you're planning on starting a world-changing technology company, then it might be all right. That really helped shape Apple's ethos of this intersection of art and technology and permission to play. And I think it's this lasting impact that has stretched well beyond our culture of technology into the more general culture. Like, I would say Apple has probably done more as a single company, certainly in the last 10, 15, 20 years, to integrate tech into the average person. I mean, my parents, were in their early 80s, and I was at my parents' house the other weekend. I was setting up a new iMac for my mom.
Oh, wow.
It's still happening. They made it accessible, and they made it centered around the individual user. This isn't an ad for Apple by any stretch, but I will say that I am a believer in sort of like what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a good job at it, haven't they?
Yeah.
So I have to ask, were you setting up the iMac for your mom so she could keep up with their microdosing apps?
I kind of wish if my mom did some microdosing, that would probably solve a lot of problems for both of us. Both me and her.
So AI is probably the next frontier of psychedelia, because if you think about it, psychedelia, the invention of the mid-60s, it gave pop culture permission to be weird, like surrealism and maximalism and trippy visuals and kids shows like, Yellow Submarine from the late 60s, early 70s, and up to Adventure Time and Rick and Morty.
Yeah,
and any other popular kid/college student animation. And it gave the mainstream this embrace of eccentricity. So it gave us that.
Yeah, you mentioned trippy. It makes me wonder if people younger than us even know the roots of the word trippy, right? That it actually came from this drug culture, this middle of the last century drug culture, roots in the 60s and then psychedelia and everything like that.
Yeah. So, hey, kids, if you think it means something else, drop us a line at hello@Two Designers Walk Into a Bar. We'd love to hear what you think trippy means.
Yeah, I would like that.
But yeah, okay. In short, psychedelia really reshaped how we design, listen, dress, film, and even think. It gave us a big fat what if to push design and pop culture and gave us a permanent taste for the surreal.
Yeah. Speaking of a big fat what if,
Yeah?
I've got a permanent taste for some wings. So what if when you hop over to the bar, you can order some of those with our next round?
I wish I could escape right now. See you next time.
Bye.